1924 East 78th Street. That's the south side of East 78th between Park and Lexington Avenue. The campus consists of 3 buildings. The first was the Maiden School Building, which was built in 1924. Alan Stevenson has been on the site since then. In 1978, it bought and converted the adjacent townhouse at 128 East 78th Street for school use. And in 2012, it was able to purchase the next house over to the west, 126 East 78th, which is in the process of converting. The goals of this project are to add 2 floors to the main school building, moving from east to west, to add 2 floors to the main school building. That part of the project is as of right, and is permitted and ready to go. We have, in fact, landmarks, I should say, we have landmarks approval for all of this, as well as the community board, which has seen the project twice and supported it each time. The goal with regard to 128, the next building to the west, is to fully integrate it. It's only been partially integrated into the school. And the goal with 126 is to fully integrate that building so that the 3 buildings, at least from the inside, will read as one interconnected building with aligned floors and aligned floor-to-floor heights. The programmatic issue that will address is the current lack of alignment of the floors and the ceiling heights. It is so significant that to continue that practice and to continue it into 126 would result in the equivalent of 4 classrooms being spent on ramps and small stairs and individual stairways. With the alignment, we can forego all of those and immediately pick up square footage equivalent to 4 classrooms. You will see in the application, in the statement of facts, exhibits H and J, which graphically illustrate the difference between the the floor alignments that we're now facing and where we wish to go with the proposed application. I think it's rather self-evident the ease of the difference between the two, and the interconnectivity. Travel time will be less, confusion will be less, and there will be greater utilization of the facilities generally. In addition to that, the work on the 2 townhouses will allow for a new science labs, new art rooms, and the right sizing of existing science spaces, which are essential to the school's program. The linchpin, the keystone of this project, however, is the alignment of the roofs of the 2 townhouses to 66 feet above, to an elevation of 66 feet. That alignment will allow for the alignment of floors within. They'll allow for the alignment of the floor-to-floor heights within, and they will allow for a rooftop at a consistent elevation that will support the construction of a greenhouse. Without that alignment, where proposed, nothing that I've mentioned is going to work and can be undertaken.
That's the alignment of the roofs of the townhouses
Of the 2
with
townhouses.
each other.
With each other.
With
to
each
six-
other.
To 66, to 66 feet, that's
Right.
correct. The townhouses will require 3 small variances from you in order to allow us to achieve that alignment of the townhouse rooftops. The first is that we need to waive the 55-foot minimum base height for both buildings. Both buildings, by the way, are in R8B. They're both in the historic district. The existing base height of 43 feet 9 inches will remain, but because we are working on those walls, we have a zoning way. We're working above them, not touching the base height themselves. We have the variance there that needs to be waived. In addition, we need to waive the 15-foot initial setback above the front wall. Again, that will remain as is, 5'7", but because we're adding to the height of the two brownstones, we are increasing the extent of that non-compliance, even though the distance itself is not changing. And therefore, we're looking to you for that variance as well. The third is a waiver of the limited height, 60-foot limited height requirement in the R8BLH 1A district. 128, the townhouse to the east, is already non-complying. It's at 63 feet 8 inches, and so our variance request for that is 28 inches to achieve 66 feet. The 126 to the west is 54 feet 4 inches, so we therefore need 11 feet 8 inches to make our 66-foot rooftop elevation. And then on top of that, the greenhouse that we're proposing is 18 feet 7 inches, and that would be calculated in the overall height of the building. We do have a procedure at city planning for getting a certification. This greenhouse, the purpose of the certification is so that it can be treated as a permitted obstruction, and so that will not count as floor area. If you will give us that waiver, it is the equivalent of the same, it's the same result. We just won't be able to consider it a permitted obstruction, and we have the floor area to absorb for that purpose. The greenhouse meets all of city planning's performance requirements, use requirements, dimensional requirements, and locational requirements to have qualified for the certification. We're just not in that forum. We're in this forum asking for your waiver of the limited height to be able to build the same greenhouse we would be entitled to build with a certification at the City Planning Commission. That's the summary of the case. You have all of our materials on the findings. We believe this is given how much will be unleashed in terms of programmatic advancement by these small variances, we think we've met all of our findings and are having literally no impact on the community. The population of the school is not being increased. There are, with the exception of the addition of earth sciences to the curriculum, no new educational curriculum modules are being brought into the building from other sites or from off-site. This is simply the school trying to maintain itself what it's been for the last decade, which is one of New York's prestigious private schools for young men. I'd like to ask David Trower, the head of the school, to say if I'm happy to answer any questions you might have, but
We
I know
did
Mr.
have
Trower's
some
here.
questions in the review session yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you want to respond to those, or if you want
Well, sure.
somebody else to respond to them from your group.
Why don't, no, I'm happy to start off on those. There may be
Okay.
others that we will refer to. There was I have a list here, shall I just go down? Okay, there was a question raised regarding noise on the outdoor playground. The playground, there's an existing play area there now. It is being moved 2 stories up for the same uses and the same amount of children that are now using it. The difference is that its walls are higher than currently, and it is roofed over. It is an open space, but it is roofed over. So in our view,
Roofed? Completely roofed?
with a permanent, well, it's open.
It's open to the sky, but it has, say it?
Well, I don't think that it's open to the, I'm going to ask Michael.
And that's an
Nevin.
enclosed, that's more like a gym.
Well, it's open air. First of all, it's open air.
Okay.
And I don't know how porous the roof is, but Michael can certainly give you that information.
Actually, the roof,
State your name for the record.
Michael Nieminen, I'm a partner at Clement Band Architect. The roof is actually a cowl wall system, so it's translucent, but it's covered
Oh, okay.
so that it is available for use during inclement weather.
So that's the current situation, or that's the proposed?
No, that's the
Okay.
proposed situation.
So the current roof is open?
But it only has a parapet and then is chain link. We have
Okay.
pads around all of the vertical enclosures of the play roof in the proposed, which go up to 7 feet 2 inches. That, in combination with the cowl wall, gabled roof, we think will suppress a lot more noise than the existing condition, plus it's been elevated 2 floors further.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
You know, go for it.
Another question that we heard yesterday was with regard to nighttime illumination from the gym windows and from the greenhouse. We have been in contact with that concerned party. I see Mr. Cotton is here now. We've been meeting with him since Landmarks. We know of his issues, and we indicated at the time that the school is going to be using blackout shades on the gymnasium. It has its own programmatic reasons for doing that. It wants to be able to use that space for video and the like, wants to be able to darken it in the daytime. And so it will have blackout shades that are mechanized. And we've told him that we totally understand his issue and his concern, and we'll be happy to be good neighbors in that respect and be very mindful of his concerns from across the street. With regard to the greenhouse, there will be shades with the greenhouse as well. And we believe that we've done everything that we technically can to address those concerns, and we've been conveying our intention to do so and our interest in being good neighbors to everybody since our earliest landmarks here.
Okay, so with respect to those shades, can you just mark on the plans that the greenhouse and the gym will include shading?
I believe the shades are indicated,
Oh,
although
really?
we do have details with us today if you'd like
Okay.
to see them in section.
We don't need to see how they're detailed, it's just that there's a note somewhere on the drawings that are set?
I believe so,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
If that's not the case, we can amend that.
Yeah,
drawing.
please.
A question was raised regarding whether the greenhouse could be located in the C18X portion of the lot. That would put it on the main building and in conflict with the playground area, and I think our plans make it pretty clear there's no room within that C18X to accommodate the greenhouse, certainly not one that would comply with the department's regulations in terms of how far set back it has to be from the line and the like. And so.
But I mean, for instance, would it then penetrate a height maximum on the C18X?
It would not, although I think programmatically there was a question in yesterday's session that seemed to address its adjacency to science labs, and the new science labs are proposed in the townhouse on floors 3 and 4. Put it simply a floor away from new science space, which it is really part of the program. If we were to move it to the main building, it would become removed by many more floors.
Okay, I'm just looking at it.
It would also, if I might add, be visible from the public way, which was an issue for us at the Landmarks Commission. This townhouse cannot be seen for landmarks purposes from the public way, and because we're able to push it back deep against our tall building, but it would be pretty much up there on Lexington Avenue if we put it on top
So
of it.
much more evident now, okay.
It's out of the line of sight from the street.
Could you just explain again the adjacency issue with the greenhouse? Like, where are you coming from when you go to the greenhouse?
You're coming from the 3rd and 4th floor. If you are considering it an integral part of the science program, the 3rd and the 4th floor are being used as STEAM and maker spaces for the science program, and the environmental sciences program is seen as an integral aspect of those science activities. So it's closely linked to townhouse science, which is where all science will be located in the proposed plans, primarily because the existing science facilities in the main building are not adequate.
Okay, so you have,
We have lower...
3rd floor, you have engineering and science lab
Correct.
in the townhouse. And
Correct.
then you have science labs on the 4th floor.
Correct.
And then on
There's
the
art-
5th floor, you have art spaces.
Yes. That is primarily in order to connect existing spaces such as the wood shop, which are part of the art program on the 5th floor. It's an imperfect art when one renovates existing buildings, but we think those adjacencies are fairly successful and
So,
linked
because
by a
there's common
continuous stair. Correct.
Okay, so just to talk about that just a little bit more, if you were to put the greenhouse, let's say, if you were to put the greenhouse where the wait a minute, I guess on top of the, I don't know what, let's just say on top of the play roof, so no cowl, or on top of the rooftop mechanical. Could you just talk about the adjacency issue, or
It
what
would
it
be
would do to
separated by 3 floors
Okay,
from the proposed science spaces. And one of those would be a double height space at the gym, which seems a long distance for students to travel in spaces which are supposed to be related programmatically. Plus, I think Shelley's comment, which is not so much to program, is that it would be more evident in those
Yeah.
locations than it is
Right.
now. Its location and its profile was adjusted, scrutinized, and responded to during the landmarks process.
okay. Did they make any comment about what if it were, or did you present to them?
No, that was never proposed.
Oh, it wasn't, okay. And then Commissioner Shanda had a question that we didn't mention yesterday, which is interesting. And your as of right, the top floor of the as of right has very high floor to floor of the townhouses. So did you look at inserting another floor into that top floor that's like a 20-foot floor to floor height?
It's not, it's 16 feet.
Oh, okay.
Which doesn't make it possible. And the reason for its additional height, I should note, is that we thought it important that we connect the gymnasium floor with the same level as the greenhouse for ease of 2 means of egress from a public assembly space. That afforded a smooth transition from the gym to stair C, which is our new stair, as well as stair A, which is existing.
Okay, so, but you're saying it's 16 feet on the as of right, on the existing condition, you have 16 feet between?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm talking about the proposed.
No, on the existing, so.
Well, the
we're
reason it's
looking at-
20 feet is because in the as of right, we're not adding the 5th floor because we can't, because there is an additional space. The as of right does not allow us to go to 66 feet, and that
Right.
6 feet is the difference between 1 and 2 floors. You only have 4 at the as of right, you have 5 floors in the proposed.
Right. But in the, so talk about the alignment. So in this as of right, you're attempting to align as much as you can.
Correct.
With the main building. And then, so the 4th floor aligns with the main building in your as of right. And then you just don't have a 5th floor.
Correct, which is a programmatic shortfall for,
But if you inserted, because, unless I misunderstood, it says.
that floor would then not align.
It wouldn't align.
Correct.
And what kind of problems is that, if it doesn't align at the 5th floor?
That would be a significant difficulty, I think, because it wouldn't connect those spaces into other spaces in the main building that have programmatic link. For instance, the wood shop, which is currently on the 5th floor of the main building. But more importantly, it would just be a reduction of program in areas where the shortfall had been identified during the programming process.
Okay, what else?
Because I think an art space that is created from the division of 2 floors, 20 feet, floor to floor, is not a particularly good art space. When you take into mechanical and all the other things, structure, not much headroom left.
Right, so it's like an 8-foot,
Yeah.
maybe, okay. Okay. And let's see, oh, the other question was, in your axonometric, oh, no, sorry. Section P08 of your proposed, where that staircase is, that's in the C1 portion. There's this void, what's that?
Mechanical space,
Okay, so
shafts.
That's shafts, okay, and, okay. Any other questions? Anything left out?
There was one question that we have down here from Commissioner Montanez about the play roof being covered in this floor area. I hope we've corrected that. It's now covered with walls, and so it qualifies as a floor area.
Because the walls are like 7 feet high around the playground.
Well, they're
7'2".
Yeah,
7'2",
yeah.
but also it's
Covered.
It's covered, right.
So is that cowl wall retractable, or it's just,
It is not.
it's permanent? Okay.
It is not, it's fixed,
Okay.
but translucent.
Indeed, okay. All right.
Those are that covers our take on the board's
Yeah, I
questions.
think those were our questions. Does anybody else have anything that's missing in terms of response? Okay, thank you.
I'd like to ask Mr. David Trower, the head of the school, to step up.
Sure,
Thank you.
thank you. Please state your name, Jennifer.
My name is David Trower, and I'm the headmaster of Allen Stevenson School. So I'm going to be very brief. I want to just simply say that this is my 27th year as headmaster of the school. The school is 134 years old, and I am the 7th headmaster. I've just come from an institute at Harvard on the future of learning, and I would like to point out that my sense of urgency about our need to accomplish this has come partly from thinking about the future. And the sense of urgency is that we do everything we possibly can to provide the best education that's possible. So the issue, I'll just make 2 points. One is the issue of appropriate and efficient learning environments. And you've got lots of materials about why we want to do that, so I won't go into that. This project gives us the chance to make a unified structure out of what has been a series of compromises in how we deliver the education. And it makes us able to do one structure out of 3 previous structures. There are lots of efficiencies. And the other point about that is that by doing that, it's really the only way we can make sense of the spaces we have is to align the floors. The other thing that I would say is that we always want to be good neighbors, and we want to be aware of the light and the noise and the other concerns that neighboring residents have about schools. We have been at 132 East 78th Street for 90 years. The school was built in 1923-24, and we've been good neighbors all along, and we intend to continue that. So unless you have questions, I'll stop.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Ms. Terry from the Science Department to come up.
Mary Terry, the Allen Stevenson School science teacher for entering my 26th year at Allen Stevenson, and STEAM coordinator for the school K through 9. I don't know how much more you really need to hear from me on the particulars having to do with the program. However, I will say that the constraints that our spaces place on not only the program that we design and the future of education, all of the transdisciplinary work we want to do, inquiry and project-based work, which really leads to deeper learning. The constraints of the space also impose constraints of time because of setting up and then having to take down, setting up and taking down in between our classes with our boys.
Where do you set up and take down?
We have to do it in very small spaces and put things in very strange storage areas, far, far, far away. So
when you say set up, is it setting up in the hall or in the cafeteria? Like,
it
where
could
are
be
you
setting up in the hall, it could be setting up in the room. However, If you have to take it down in between classes, boys have no further access. If you just take the plants as an example with the greenhouse, that you're moving earth boxes where their plants are kept and having to move them into a separate space that's almost a connecting storage space, which means that they don't have good access to their own little plants. And these are children, I mean, you think these would be little boys, but really up through ninth grade, they still name their plants. You know, they have a personal relationship with these things, and they want to have access. And the way things are right now, they don't have that. So greenhouse space and more space will ease us up with time and with the ability to allow them to see their work, think about their work in between when they're actually physically hands-on working on it. And it creates a completely different atmosphere in the rooms. So there's so much more I could say, but I
I
think...
just have a question about how the greenhouse actually operates. So would it be a class that you bring up there, or everyone has a project and they're working on the project at the greenhouse? Like, how do you actually use that?
You would, it could work in a variety of ways. We use, right now we use the science labs, which are woefully small, and we have to use these mobile planters in order to do anything. And some of the classes can't go much past planting a seed and watching a seedling grow. They can't go to a full-fledged plant, so they don't get the full life cycle. But, you know, I'll say for my own boys, it starts with seeds. We watch the entire growth cycle of a plant. If we had a place where these plants lived, instead of in and out of the lab, having to move them all the time, A, they would grow better, B, they could actually, they get so frustrated because we don't have the ability to measure their growth height over time and their weight at the end, just the way a parent would track the growth of a child. That's what they want to be able to do, and we're really constrained right now. So whole classes will use it, and because we use a lot of planting, we donate some of these greens that we grow to, you know, a lunch program up the road. It's part of our service learning as well. So we would be able to do so much more in that regard, and the boys are really eager to do so. So whole classes, individual boys who particularly love that kind of work, it would be a combination. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
I might add on to that the performance guidelines for the city planning certification make it very clear that the space is to be used for educational purposes only, limits the amount of storage, limits the amount of office space and the like, so that it will be a intensively used educational facility. We only have one other speaker, but in the meantime, I'd like to, between that speaker, I'd like to say if you have any questions regarding the programmatic utilization charts that we submitted, Dr. Winnie Barnes is here, Director of Strategic Planning for the school, and she would be the person to ask those questions up. So if there are any questions on those charts, she's the one, not me.
Okay, thank you. All right.
I'd like just one final speaker then, Ms. Wilkins, who is both an educator at the school and a mother at the school.
My name is McCartney Wilkins. I'm a parent of a first grader at the school and taught at Allen Stevenson for 10 years previously, so I'm no longer a teacher there. I can speak to, as a former teacher there, the constraints on programming. I was in charge of, we have a breakout session every day where the boys are able to meet with their teachers for extra help, for enrichment, you know, to grow their plants. And to schedule that was an absolute nightmare because of the spatial constraints. So that expanding into the townhouse will greatly improve the programming and the ability for teachers to meet with their boys. As a parent, my son, he's only in first grade right now, but the future of education is one where they need to be able to go deeper into their thinking, where they're not just in social studies and then they go to English and then they go to science, but one where it's fully integrated, and that could mean they have a science class and then the social studies teacher expands on that and they can go into that space. They can go up into the greenhouse. And also, my son, growing up in the city, doesn't have much connection to nature. So, and my sister is director of agriculture at Queens County Farm. So it's very important for me, for him to have a connection to the earth and where our food comes from and how it's connected, and also the service learning piece with All Souls. And I have a hard time speaking in public, so if I make
did
no
fine.
sense whatsoever.
Very good.
Any questions?
Thank you.
If you were boys, it would be
Really? Little boys. Oh.
I can end it on that note right there. All right, we're happy to answer any more questions that you have.
Okay,
but we-
thanks. So I think we'll hear from the public, if
Very
there's
good.
anyone here from the public who wants to speak. Please come
Please
and
state
state
your name for
your...
the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Please watch the...
I also have a problem with speaking in public too. And if you were all boys, I'd be very comfortable too, small boys. But
What is it about boys?
I have 4 grandsons and they're all bigger and whatever. My name is Janet Roman. I'm from Brown Harris Stevens. I'm the managing agent for 136 East 79th Street. I believe you might have gotten some complaints or some objections to this. It's not so much the objection of the expansion. The building and myself are pro-academic and the future of our younger generation and learning. We're all pro that. I think we're mostly objecting to a few things. One, never being properly notified by Community Board 8 about this expansion and of the townhouses and the main building. 2, we just, although the notification about this hearing was dated July 1st, we only received it on July 20th. I was able to get an appointment with Community Board 8 to review the application on July 26th, which was just this past Tuesday. By the time we got the notification out to everyone in the buildings, this is also my associate, he has a building at 120 East 79th Street, which is 2 buildings down from 136. And by the time we got all the information out to everyone in the buildings, we didn't even have time for them to even react. I guess you've sort of addressed a lot of the concerns we had, which had to do with the noise in the greenhouses and the lighting. I still have some concerns about the lighting with the greenhouses, how you put shades on a greenhouse when it needs light and I guess the moon and growing and things like that. I don't know if I'm explaining it correctly.
I think it has to do with the light, when the lights are on in the greenhouse.
Which,
Which
okay.
you don't need at night.
Okay.
It's when the lights are on and the lights don't shine, that's the issue. At night, you turn the lights off and walk away, so you don't need to.
Okay, and I think the other concern, biggest concern, I also have a building at 885 Park, which is their concern, which is on the corner of 78th and Park. There's so much construction going on 78th Street and has been for the past 5, 6, 7 years, because there's a lot of turnover in the townhouses on 78th Street. That one townhouse is being worked on, and now this is just going to add on to more of the construction. That I know timing is very important to the school. I understand that. There's already construction going on. You guys are already starting already, and there's one on the north side of 78th Street going on right behind our building. It's a lot. It's a lot of construction going on. So believe me, we understand you want to do what you want to do, and
Please
there's.
address the board. Please.
I'm sorry, there's a lot of construction that has to be taken into consideration also. So it's the noise, it's the light, and the notification wasn't properly given to everyone in the building. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, okay, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Richard Cotton. My wife and I live directly across from the Allen Stevenson School at 121 East 78th Street. I've submitted a sworn statement to the commission. I'm here to discuss the light pollution issue. It has been referred to. I did not intend to make the following comment, but I feel compelled to say it, which is the school has not acted as a good neighbor. It has treated the community as an obstacle to be gotten around rather than a neighbor to be consulted. That's unfortunate, but I won't waste any more time on that, but I just feel the need to correct the record. So we're talking about three design elements of the building. Two of them are all glass. They're postmodern light boxes, as the community has come to refer to them, built on the roof of what are two 19th century style townhouses. One is the all-glass greenhouse, where, for programmatic reasons, the lights will be on all night. The second is a glass roof, all glass roof. It's necessary for the growth. They're grow lights. There was actually discussion by an expert, by one of the community board members, to say they were familiar with greenhouses, and that is a fact, and that having shades on them is important. The third element is are the large gymnasium windows. Now, over time, the school has informally responded by saying they would put shades on the greenhouse and on the school windows. They have refused to say the same with respect to the all-glass roof of the art studio, which is in fact closest to 78th Street. It will in particular be visible and cast light on our bedroom, study, and guest room. It will be hugely visible from the buildings referred to by the prior speaker. So and to the extent that the lights are on at night without shades, they will be hugely visible inappropriately on what is a residential street. Lest anyone think this request is unnecessary, and my request is that the board, if it grants the variance, attach conditions that all three elements of light pollution are addressed. I just want to report to the commission and to the school, ironically, that the school left the lights on the fourth floor of the school, all 24 hours, all last week and over the weekend. So this isn't necessarily a criticism of the school, but the fact is that institutions are simply particularly fallible in carrying out routine duties that are not core to the mission, and where failure to do so carries no consequence for the institution, even if it negatively affects others. The request we make in terms of the use of shades, they've agreed to two, can't understand why they won't do the third, and I would ask that it be made a legal obligation. So I would request that the commission impose that as a condition of the variance. Thank you.
Any other speakers? No other speakers? Okay. Mr. Freeman?
Shelley Friedman. With regard to the concern about noise and construction and the like, it's true that 78th Street is a very busy street. It tends to be in the Upper East Side, very busy in the summer because that is typically the only time when work on co-ops and the like can be done, is during summer months. So yes, it does tend to be. We too have a desperate need to get this project moving. That's why we're going to ask at the close of this, we're going to ask the chair to close this hearing and schedule, either vote it out or schedule a date, because our need to make this construction schedule as economically, as efficient as possible, both in terms of the time we're bothering our neighbors, the duration of the construction project and the like, is really tied to how much work we can still get done this summer. Otherwise, this project starts to stretch out very long into 2017, and we would have an interest, which we believe our neighbors would share, in making this as short a construction process as possible.
Is there I'm guessing it's the architect, but is there someone here who could speak to what the construction schedule is? Is it intended to do the renovation of the townhouses first, and then which are not occupied?
We are underway now on all twos. We are underway now on all twos.
On the interior of the main building?
Yes, and the alt one is Commissioner Pavan has indicated that the alt one is ready to be issued, subject to the approval of this board on the variances for the rest of
So
the job.
construction started, how long ago?
Construction, well, as soon as the boys were out, really. Well, the townhouse, Charlie, you want it, or Michael?
Yeah,
All
I
right, either
can
one.
do that. Charlie and I both know. Right now, we're currently concluding demolition within the townhouses. The townhouses are the first phase of work.
Okay. So that work's going to continue because it's not related to the active school use, right?
That's correct.
So you're
The building's
gonna-
not occupied.
Okay, so the townhouse work will be completed. That's the idea. And then in the summer, you'll do the main?
Come on out. I want to say primarily this summer of 17, but
Hi, that's Charles Parenti. So the question was?
The question is about the phasing on the construction.
Right, so the townhouse is currently under demolition. We're expecting that to be completed early fall. Upon permitting, we'd like to, continue with the townhouse construction. That would be, I guess that's scheduled to be completed in the summer of 2018.
Of summer.
Summer.
So wait, are you going to continue, the townhouses aren't being used because you demolished
The
the
townhouses
interior.
are not being used.
So you're going to continue working on them until that work is completed?
Correct.
So you think it's going to be essentially a year and
It's
2
a-
years?
It's a couple of years, a little less than 2 years.
Okay. All right, and then when would the work on the main building?
So some of the work in the main building would be done over the summer, probably the summer of 17. And then we would start some of the work, more of the significant work in the winter of 2018. So that would come online towards this, like sort of the second half of the townhouse construction.
How do you do work in the winter of 2018 when the school's in process?
It's going to be an it's an alt one, and it's going to be certain work being done in the cellar. We're going to take that offline.
So you're going to do work in the cellar in 2018?
Correct.
In the winter?
In the winter of 2018.
Okay. And then the whole thing completed?
So ultimately, what happens is the townhouse will be completed in the summer of 2018, at which point that space, when it's completed, gets TCO'd, and we'll utilize that as a swing space. So we're going to be then moving occupants from the main building to the townhouse to free up space and do the work in the building.
Okay.
So it's a lot of shifting around, which is why, to Shelley's point, schedule now is critical for us.
Okay, understood. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Charlie. Michael. To the issue of community review, we started off at Community Board 8 in the fall of 2014 for our landmarks hearing, that our public hearing at landmarks. We came back to land use, and now here. I mean, we have had an exhaustive community board process. We began with an open house for our neighbors so that everybody could see the project. We have had several meetings with Mr. and Mrs. Cotton. We have had several meetings with Mr. Verona, the individual to our east. West, excuse me. Memorable because I had to sit in those little kindergarten chairs, and you tend to remember those meetings. So I have no response to Mr. Cotton when he says that we have not been forward and outward with the community. I will say that having met with him several times and heard his testimony, this is the first time I heard a concern about the skylight over the art room. And had I been asked, or had Michael been asked, or had anybody been asked, we could have conveyed the information that there are going to be shades on that skylight as well. And we will put that we will make sure there is a note on the plans to that effect. So hopefully, we have addressed
I have
his
one other
concerns.
question, which is again, the architect, but I would think that in the process of renovating the building, there's efforts made to make the building kind of as energy efficient as possible. So I'm assuming there would be some kind of sensors or timers on the lighting so that you wouldn't have lights on all night when unoccupied space?
We'll have state-of-the-art controls on lighting, and I should also note that the shades that we're discussing can be seasonally programmed so that it's not just a time clock issue, but they can adjust as the seasons adjust so that, sundown is at different times. But that's easy to achieve with current control systems, and we intend to do that.
Okay, if you could include a statement about that in your
Of course.
materials. And then also, what was the other question? Oh, about the greenhouses themselves, the lights are going to be on all the time? Is that really how it's
The
done?
light should not be on all the time, and I should note that the shades, while they do benefit the neighbors, are also part of we're using a fairly well-known greenhouse consultant to make sure that this is a state-of-the-art, top-notch facility, and the shades are actually part of the system for, heat retention. So it's not, the two are mutually supported, if you will.
Okay.
That's primarily at the roof, but we're providing shades at the vertical surfaces as well.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions here? Okay, so I think really the only thing that needs clarification is to make it really clear on the drawings about the sun controls, which will be part of a condition. And I just want to note that it looks like your mailings to the neighbors as required by board rules was on July 11th, which complies with the board rules, which is 20 days before, correct? 20 days before the hearing date. So they did meet those requirements. Okay, so I don't think there were any other issues that we need marked on the plan. So then with that, a motion to close.
Chair Perlmutter?
Aye.
Vice Chair Hinkson?
Aye.
Commissioner Montanez?
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown?
Aye.
Okay, and so can you get those notes on the drawing really fast?
You bet.
So maybe we could bring this to a vote on the 16th, just to look at some notes. Okay, is that all right? You're just just make sure your cover letter says, this cover letter is submitted to show those notes on that page X, okay? Good, thanks. So if the decision on the 16th of August, so if you could please submit this week, the drawings?
Michael, this week?
We should be able to get this out by the end of the week.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's-
So it's just a couple sentences on some
Of
drawings.
course, and we'll annotate the drawings that you have as well.
Okay, good. The 5th of August for submission, okay?
No problem.
Yes.
That's Friday. Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you all for coming.
Item number 6, 269 15 BC, 2076 Ocean Parkway, Brooklyn.
Please step outside, the hearings are continuing.
You're leaving up for me?
Thanks. Yes, thank you.
Bless you. Bless you.
All right. Good afternoon. Lyra Altman from the Law Office of Lyra Altman. We had somebody attend your executive session yesterday. We watched the tape. To begin, I understand there was a comment that the board had not received a copy of the community board recommendation. I have obtained it. I've also had it emailed into your board. Would you like me to pass it up now just so you see it at the moment?
It's okay, just tell us what they said.
It is 34 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstentions. So unanimous in favor of this proposal.
Okay.
And as I said, it was emailed into your board as well yesterday from the community board directly. Regarding the bay window, there was a question as to whether it was a permitted obstruction. It is a permitted obstruction up to 16 inches in a required yard. This does,
16 inches. 16 inches.
well, from what I was told actually from the architect, it depends on the width of the eave. And in this, the eave is 16 inches.
Has to do with the eave. Oh, okay.
It
That's all right.
So I'm being told by Mr.
Can't exceed the
Vincenti.
eve width, it's got to line up, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Mr. Vincenti certainly knows the answer on this one.
It's all right, whatever.
Next question regarding the cellar, that it's being excavated and appears the first floor structure is being enhanced, so it's thicker. That is correct. They're adding radiant heat. That's why it's getting a little bit thicker. Second and third floors, you are correct. They are being raised as shown on the plans. The statement of facts and findings said that we mentioned the last 15 feet is in the OP subdistrict. It is. The fact that it's not on the area map, I will have that corrected. And there was a question as to why it was not the deeper lots, why it didn't include those. And actually, it's not that it didn't include the deeper lots, it's that the Ocean Parkway subdistrict doesn't go to Ocean Parkway. It cuts halfway between the block. It doesn't matter how deep the lots are, it's all about where the line is for the subdistrict. They don't separate out by the lot size.
Okay.
Just where it sits. There was also a question regarding the homes on lots 39 to 42 and whether at some point those were one zoning lot, whether the lines were gerrymandered.
Yeah, you've got a CO that says 4 two-family homes from
Yeah.
lots 39 to 42.
What I did was I compared actually the 1929 Belcher Hyde map to the current radius map. They are identical. I mean, to the inch, those 4 lots have not changed since 1929.
So there were always 4 separate zoning lots as well as 4 separate tax lots, but received one
From what I can
certificate of
see,
occupancy for
yes.
all the buildings.
From what I can see, somewhat odd, but I won't say it's the first time I've seen it. It
Oh, the
certainly
old
isn't.
days, yes.
Yes, the 1920s. As far as the streetscape drawing, there was a statement that it doesn't show the front elevation of the neighbor as built. I looked at that home, both in the updated photographs that I have and Google Images. I compared them to the drawings, and it matches from what I can see.
Because it looks, the reason that I'm asking is because it looks so big, you would think it'd be taller. You know, that's, I'm just
It's a height
looking at.
question, not an appearance question, it's a height question, is what you're saying.
Yeah, well, in other words, it looks so big on the sort of Google Maps and everything, I just assumed that it was taller. Maybe it's not taller. I mean, if you.
We could check the height again. I looked at the visual, the aesthetics of the building. I can look at the height again
So
and
they
see.
didn't, unlike this proposal, they didn't raise the roof to extend it and all that stuff. They just did a straight line extension.
I believe what I can do is I can get a copy of the approved plans. As of this moment, I don't have.
Okay, just to make, well, no, you're basing it on, they did their renovation, they did the work already.
Yes,
So
they
it's
did.
just,
It
what's the
appears
condition?
that they did not raise it, but of
Okay.
course, only the set of approved plans will tell me for certain.
Okay.
Regarding the front elevation, you asked about having a front axonometric. You actually have one in your file. Unfortunately, that dormer was inadvertently left off.
Oh.
We will have that corrected, of course. Now, the other question was regarding the rear wall. There was a statement yesterday that the building to our right, that already enlarged, was actually measured off of the line of the, that's what I'm looking for.
Right away.
Right away, thank you. That is actually not what happened. They did measure off the rear lot line, and so did we. The difference is their lot is 130 feet deep, our lot is 140 feet deep. The depth of the lots is different. It's not that they measured off the right-of-way and we measured off the rear lot line. We measured off the same point on our lots. That point on our lots just starts at a different place.
Okay, so then.
Nonetheless, what they did receive was an approval for a 20-foot rear yard. And actually, if you look at the home, I believe it's 2 houses to the left, you'll see they also built quite a bit back.
But they're at the same, they line up. I'm looking at an aerial.
I'm sorry, 4
photo.
houses to the left. I apologize,
Yeah.
not 2 houses, 4 houses to the left. You'll see they built further back as well.
No, so 4
4 houses to the
3
left on the
houses
corner.
back.
On the corner.
On
They
the
did build
corner.
further back. And then you've got the house to our right,
Google
which
Earth.
built back to a 20-foot rear yard.
So, I need to go on Google Earth and it's not showing up. But,
What are you trying to,
to see what, I have a vignette on my screen, but it's cut and pasted, it's not Google Earth at the same time. So, but what I'm seeing on Google Earth right now is that there's the adjacent house that's apparently built not as deep as you're proposing, and then there's a house next to that one, and then there's one more up. And the one more up lines up to the one that got the BSA approval. So, without more, I see those are your alignment points. That's your condition. I don't know, because I don't have, maybe Commissioner Hinks and,
well, those were actually all provided with a 20-foot rear yard. We are proposing the same rear yard. And if you look, this is a very
no,
unusual.
they're 20 feet measured off of a different point. right?
Correct, the rear of their lot line.
Yeah, so that's what we're,
a while to
okay,
render.
just a second.
Okay, so
So you're
we're
going to do
here.
Google, you want to do satellite.
Yeah, they have, right, they have insurance. And actually, they have tax map on as well.
Sorry, our internet's very slow.
Not a problem. You do have the tax map on this in your file that shows this. So does the radius diagram.
Say?
The radius diagram does show this, the layout of lots, if that's what you're trying to see.
No, but it's the Google Earth that speaks the current conditions, or close to current. So in terms of the length of these houses that are built 2 stories, which is what you're proposing, the Google map view, the Google satellite view is indicating the house next door is built to a point. That's an interesting point to use as your comparison. The house 2 houses away is built to a point that looks actually a little shorter, but that might, because it's got a tilted back roof.
And they both have a 20-foot rear yard.
But
both of
it's
those
20
homes.
foot measured off of their different lot line. No, those guys look like they have a much deeper rear yard.
It's measured off of their lot line. If you look at, it's harder for you to see that, I think, on Google Images. If you look at the rear yard diagram, you'll actually see, because these lots are not rectangular lots, they're very strangely shaped in this particular spot on this particular block. It's an unusual, excuse me, an unusual layout. You've got the house to our right has a shorter property. You've got the house 3 houses over has actually a much deeper property. You can see that. If you look at the rear yard diagram, you'll see what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'm trying to,
Would you like me to hand mine up for you to see?
no, it's okay.
It doesn't really look like that when you look at the photograph.
And you'll see that our rear yard on the right side is surrounded, we've got that house that's built to the 20-foot yard.
Wait. Okay, so,
And there's a very
Got it.
interesting layout here, just because of the way the lots are situated.
yeah, but so if you look at, so some of it's not built, your diagram isn't reflect, that's part of why I went to Google Maps, because your diagram doesn't reflect the existing conditions, right? Because the house immediately next door to you is already built.
Right, it's shown as 20 feet, though, to show you where it was approved to. That is demarcated on this.
Right, so there's that, so there's the depth indicated, right?
Correct, and behind that you see a
Then there's the house
garage.
up on lot 36 and lot 34, where, so if you were to just draw lines across there, everybody's lining up. But your proposal is not to line up.
Those are different sized lots.
Right, but that indicates the sort of the depth of the donut, so to speak, right?
Well,
The donut's
theoretically-
already been compromised, or bizarre, right, is bizarre. And so
It
you
is an
play
odd
off
layout.
of bizarre, right?
Well-
So, right, because some of these lots are very shallow, and then they have this very odd condition, there's a flag lot or something like that.
Yeah, that surrounds, basically surrounds us, so that we are surrounded by garages, one of which is this one where a car accesses from, what we can gather, Avenue U.
Here's the flag lot.
Yeah, this guy.
Is that still in existence, the car access?
It appears it is, there's a right-of-way there.
Yeah, they've got, right, they have a
Yeah.
right of way.
So you're sort of cramming up against the right-of-way, that's the other thing.
So the garage for lot 36 is right adjacent to you?
Correct.
And they can enter through that Avenue U right of way?
That's what it appears.
Lot 36 is flag lot.
Yes.
And I will point out the center of this block already, of course, has something that I can only describe as incredibly large on it.
And a large what?
You've got Shari Shalom on this block,
Oh, on the top. Lot 18, you mean, yeah.
completely obstructing the center donut of this block. I would say that this block is not a typical block in that, I know when you look at these blocks, you always ask us to look at what's going on this whole block. Is there this large open space? This block really doesn't have that. We have a right-of-way coming from Avenue U that's definitely obstructing the visual that we would typically talk about. You've got this very large, beautiful landmark facility, and I know that Ryan Singer likes this one. This is the Lapidus project. that is further up this block. So it's a very unusual block, and you have a number of houses that have much shallower rear yards, and on the back side of this block, you've got properties that only require a 20-foot rear yard. You've got
Along the what?
along the back on East Fifth Street.
Because
They
they're
only
in the
require-
subject.
Because they're in the sub-district. They only require a 20-foot rear yard.
Yeah, that's what's so weird about this. So-
This block in so many ways is so different than a block, I'll say, on East 24th between L&M. It doesn't compare.
But it seems that the effective rear yard of this site would only be 10 feet, because the other 10 feet is a right-of-way.
Right.
It's still an open space. Obviously, they're not going to be putting up a fence, but it's still an open space. And as we all know, the rear yard requirement isn't taken from a right-of-way, it's taken from the rear lot line. Just like a side yard, when there's an easement, we're not allowed to build on the easement, but we're still allowed to include it as part of our yard. It's effectively the same thing. We understand and we acknowledge we're not going to close in that space. We cannot. We understand that. But it does count as open space for us.
So here's the thing. I know that this is a very wacky interior block, and I think what would be helpful is if the architect could take a look at the interior of the block and look at sort of the massing of the interior to try to explain like how much of it is open space and what your extension's going to actually do to the open space. Because when I imagine it from looking at the Google map, the Google satellite image, which I lost, when I imagine the building, because you didn't draw into, obviously, you didn't do a rendering where you put it in, I imagine that it's so far forward that it's clogging up the interior space in a way that isn't consistent with what everything else is going on, even though there's some longer buildings and things like that. So if you could, what your job is to make the argument from a massing point of view on the interior that depth, your proposed depth, is something that is in keeping with the neighborhood character, and that you could even say, okay, those guys on the other side, they're allowed to have 20-foot rear yards, so what would happen if they built to their allowable depth? You know, you could dash that in or something, so we can understand better what the character of this interior space is, because it's very hard to do it with that figure ground that doesn't show the heights of the buildings. And because the Google Earth image is so obvious, maybe you can do something with that, okay? So, and so the idea is you're making the urbanism argument, and so far it's hard to make it from what we're seeing, because we're having to try to imagine the answers, and that's something that I think is the architect's job to try to do. Okay.
I think we have a lot of good information on this block that will certainly help us to provide the argument that you need.
Okay, so, but, you know, understanding that some is a written argument and some is a visual argument, right?
Understood. That's why we're both here to listen.
Visuals speak a zillion words when they're done right, right? So, okay.
I know you can do it right.
And just make sure that your diagram truly shows at least what I'm looking at on Google Earth, on the map, because I think your adjacent building is longer than you're showing it. Yeah.
I don't know.
She doesn't
Hope
show.
not.
She does, yeah, she's not showing this building. This is her
On the
building.
rear yard diagram, it's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
correctly
it's not
shown.
shown at all on
But
the diagram.
It's dashed in.
It's just
not drawn
dashed
on,
in.
it's dashed in.
Right. So
Not
it
even
should
that,
reflect
yeah.
existing conditions, which you can get
Yeah.
from Google. You know, like we're a big ad for Google.
So that should be true for all of the houses that you are showing.
They should show what's existing.
Yeah, because it'll, by the way, it arguably could help your argument, right? That some of these structures are taller than you're realizing, some of them are built higher than maybe whatever, because it's such an odd collection of shapes in the back. There's a 3-story thing that's flying up there. Yeah.
It's an odd interior of a block, without a doubt.
Yeah, so, okay. And then, what was the other one? So the other part of it is, because we look at these buildings in elevation, but the fact is, they're so crammed together, I don't know that anyone would see them in elevation. This is a little different than a lot of the other sites we look at. If you just look at the adjacent building that was already enlarged, it's so close to all the houses that, except from the air, you don't see the side elevations. So that should be another part of how you discuss the massing. Like, I commented that the attic walls are very high and massive and read like a wall, but I don't know how anyone would actually get in to see that they're high and read like a wall, unless you tear down the buildings next door. So,
Salvatore Vincenti, I'm the architect. So as far as that's concerned, this is an R5 zone, which as of right, you can build up to 33 feet a side wall. But like you said, no one is ever going to see that because it's 3.5 feet away from the neighbor. So, but I mean, it is an as of right. We're not here for the height.
right, but you,
And also, adjacent buildings have already a third floor enlargement.
right, but and you're not here for floor area, right?
We are not.
Okay.
Just double check.
Yeah, or lot coverage, or, no, it says.
Side yards and rear yards, it says.
1.21, yeah.
I'm
so-
just double checking that.
Yeah. Or open space, or lot coverage. Okay, so the only thing
Rear yard
you're
and
here
side
for is the rear yard and the side yard.
And the side yards are straight line both sides.
Right, okay. Okay, so it's just that you have to focus more on what's there and why this isn't gonna wreak havoc, right? Or some modified version on havoc.
Like Lyra said, most of the East Fifth is in the sub-district, so
Yeah,
it's a
understood.
20-foot rear yard requirement, and most people build to the 20-foot.
Yeah.
And that's at least 2 stories.
They
if not-
haven't done, but they could.
Some have.
Some have,
Most,
okay, well,
as
that's
you-
it, so I don't even know which ones
Okay.
have, I don't see from our satellite.
We could do an overlay which shows exactly where the lot line is and how close they are to the lot line. That's not a
Okay,
problem.
okay, good, thank
Okay.
you.
That's simple enough.
How long will it be?
Any, huh?
I gotta do-
Any other
the other one's
comments
more
about this one?
Just, does your area map on E2 reference the wrong lot? Is it 49 or 39?
Let me see, which area map are we discussing? The radius diagram?
On E2.
Oh, Sal's.
P2.
E2, yours.
E2.
Your
At
map
2
here.
Brute. Is it 39 or 49?
It's 32.
His,
Oh, well, his,
yeah,
Oh, it's
his
right.
drawing.
It looks like it's right.
Does it say 39 or 49?
It says 39.
39.
Okay, thought that it said 49, sorry.
No, lot 49 actually fronts on Avenue U.
Thank you. Just my eyesight.
okay,
Sorry.
or smushy drawing.
Or smushy drawings.
Okay, all right, so, I think you know what to do. Are there any speakers on this? No, because there's hardly nobody here except lawyers.
You never know. Sometimes they're the worst.
So, what do we say? How about September 27th for coming back? Or the submission on the 7th of September?
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
September 7th, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And September 27th.
September 27th
Let me
here.
just make sure it's not during one of the holidays, correct? I believe all the holidays were taken into account.
I think they're in October.
Just want to make sure, because there are so many this year.
There are more this year?
I was going to say, there
I
are more
meant-
this
I
year
meant
than
to-
usual.
I meant to fill on Tuesdays this year. I apologize, I meant to fill on Tuesdays.
Keep adding holidays.
There is one holiday that you guys did not count, you did calendar a hearing, actually.
Which was which? That's all right. We'll try to, this year, for next year, we reached out to experts.
I know, because we had this discussion. On October 18th, you actually calendared a hearing, and that's actually Sukkot.
October 18th?
October.
Oh,
October 18th. It's going to be, because I think a lot of
Okay.
people aren't going to be able to take that.
Is that the
Okay.
first 2 days of support?
Oh, good.
It's
All right.
the first 2 days of Sukkot. They took off Shemini Atzeret and Simchat Torah. All right, thank you very much.
thank you.
Item number 7, 2016-4134BZ, 45-11, 245th Street, Queens.
Good afternoon, Josh Rhinesmith of Ackerman LLP for the applicant, the Divine Wisdom Academy. This is an application that is requesting a floor area waiver to permit a modest enlargement to an existing community facility building located in Douglaston, Queens. I believe, as all the commissioners are aware, we've been presented with somewhat of a unique situation. When the application was originally filed, the zoning text was clear that all community facility uses in R1 and R2 zoning districts, except those that are permitted by special permit either through BSA or CPC, had to comply with the residential floor area regulations. For the R2A, it's a 0.5 FAR. Our understanding through the scoping documents of the ZQA text amendment is that community facility floor areas were not going to be changing under ZQA. When the text was adopted, a provision was put in at the very beginning of the new 24-111, which states that the provisions of the section shall apply to zoning lots with long-term care facilities and philanthropic or not-for-profit institutions with sleeping accommodations, which would lead one to believe that we're back at a 1.0 FAR. However, the same provision that was in original 24-111 limiting community facility uses, except those first that are obtained by special permit, to the 0.5 immediately follows. So it contradicts the text that is now at the beginning of 24-111. So this actually came to our attention last week. We hadn't checked the new ZQA text because, again, we were under the understanding that FARs were not changing in these districts. And so now it appears, if you were to read 24-111 now, technically the floor area waiver is no longer required. However, we have requests.
What's technically mean?
Well, you read the introductory paragraph, and it says that the provisions of this section only apply to, long-term care facilities or the not-for-profit institutions with sleeping accommodations.
So isn't that not technically, that's legally?
Legally, technically,
Different.
I'm not sure how.
Different, actually.
Okay, I won't go into semantics about that, but
Okay.
when you read the section in its entirety, it's currently adopted, there's a clear contradiction. We have been in discussions with city planning all last week, got confirmation from them that the first provision was not supposed to go in there. They thought that if anything, it was supposed to go over or after paragraph A, which deals with R1 and R2, and before paragraph B, or just be stricken altogether. Frankly, I'm not sure what happened in the drafting. But we're left with trying to now convince the Department of Buildings that the current text, the FAR is legally a 1.0.
Why do you have to convince the Department of Building?
Because, again, if you continue to read through, it's clear there was an error. Okay?
All right, well-
And the Department of Buildings, when they are presented with cases of sometimes contradictory text, will look to city planning. City planning has confirmed that this was in fact an error. But what I would ask the board to do is have the ability to adjourn the hearing for a period of a few weeks. We've requested an emergency meeting with DOB to try to clarify that they will apply the 1.0 FAR as the text currently reads.
But what if it changes after that,
Well-
while you're in construction?
Absolutely, so that's a
No, all right, skip that. What about the 72
Okay.
exemption?
So we have always looked at the 1972 provision at the end of paragraph A, which existed before and after ZQA amendment, as being a vesting provision for buildings that had plans filed during the time that the text was changing in 1972 from the 1.0 to the 0.5. Not necessarily as a provision that was meant to grandfather all pre-existing buildings at a 1.0 FAR.
Because it does say buildings.
It says
It
buildings
needs to be a
with plans. It says buildings with plans filed.
Right, buildings with plans filed prior to 72.
I understand. It has always been our review, and there are instances, and I will also admit that the language is a little inartful. But there are provisions such as this that are contained throughout the zoning resolution when particular sections are being enacted. They'll refer, and sometimes even to specific
Right.
applications, but this is customarily seen as a vesting section versus grandfathering all pre-72 buildings, or I'm sorry, zoning lots at a 1.0 FAR.
No, this
that
isn't
was
zoning
our-
lots, this is buildings.
Right.
And you're proposing to add to an existing building that no question had a permit before 72. Why are you trying to read more into it than what it says?
Because we've
Yeah.
also,
I mean, I think that council is correct that oftentimes text amendments build in these sort of, you know, if it's been filed at DOB, then they get to keep what they had prior to that. It's inartfully phrased in this case. I've seen it better done. I think we could either do two things. We could have DOB opine on that, I think have that conversation.
well,
And-
absolutely.
Yeah, and then also, if you can find when this was inserted into the text,
It was
there may.
1972.
Okay.
Well, with
But
all the
under what zoning text change, it was inserted into the text, and what it was then like, what was being changed and what was it allowing to do, and the report may say that this is, you know, this is for buildings that are filed and not for, you know, there may be clarification
Well, wait a
in the
second.
report.
If you're just going to the buildings department for a plain reading of the text, and you're trying to get a permit, that's your goal, is to get a permit. And you get a permit because it says right there, if I have a permit pre-72, I don't have to read this. So why
And
do you have to
again-
go back to legislative history unless DOB says, we don't think that this means this? So why are you creating more
It doesn't let you do it.
aggravation than is necessary if it says right here, you can do it?
Again, in matters of these types of ambiguities, DOB often refers to city planning. We have already consulted with city planning, and they've agreed that this is a vesting provision versus a, grandfathering all pre-1972 buildings as having the ability for a 1.0 FAR.
One would think that with all the amendments, they would have removed the sentence because it's no longer needed.
I agree, but you can look and you'll see those types of provisions throughout zoning.
Okay.
Okay? And also, there's a question about the last clause, so the clause at issue says, "The provisions of the paragraph shall not apply to buildings for which plans were filed with the Department of Buildings prior to November 15th of 1972, including any subsequent amendments thereof."
The plans.
Well, exactly. So we read this as being post-approval amendments for those plans that were filed were under process at the time that the FAR change was going to occur. And again, not that every building community facility building dated back to the 1920s was going to maintain that 1.0.
I would, that is up to DOB to determine. For our course forward, I think that your suggestion of an adjournment for a meeting with DOB to have sort of things figured out, if they interpret the text in a way that is weird. I don't know how I mean, I guess we act on a DOB objection, and
Yeah,
we
we
would
have to
act on a
have
DOB objection regardless of whether we agree with it or
And at
not.
the moment, we don't have an objection, it just sort of generally says something about it not complying, kind of.
Yeah. And
We
then,
will have-
and then I would also, to Commissioner Montanez's concern, so if in the event that DOB says, okay, well, that's what the text says, go ahead and file, I would recommend that we just take this off calendar. And then if you can't get done and before city planning, then we come back.
But you
and
just
bring
have to
it
vest.
Yeah, I understand, but this is an alteration application, which is considered other construction under 11331.
You need
in order-
substantial construction, you don't need.
No, you need to have a C of O for other construction.
Well, see if you can, because of the situation that you're in, see if you can get Department of Buildings to agree on something, right? In other words, you're in a rock between you're in an uncomfortable place with a mistake in the text that's giving a certain instruction.
Sure.
And the idea that you'd be caught like this is not right.
Yeah.
And under normal circumstances, you'd work out something. And you'd even work out something with city planning where if they're really going to make an amendment, which by the way, takes a really long time, right?
It's fully.
Yeah, so
Especially with such a major.
this is a tiny project. I mean, you know, if you got
Look,
going, right?
Of course, we're hopeful we can, one, convince DOB
Sure.
that as it currently is phrased, legally, we have a 1.0 FAR, we don't need the waiver.
I hope so.
But we have to convince DOB of that. Our concern is they look at the text, they see the contradiction immediately below, they consult with city planning, and then that's the interpretation DOB maintains.
Right, understood.
That's fine.
But that's a different thing.
Then
That's
we'll have
DOB
an objection
interpreting a
and
text
we'll-
and deciding that there's
Absolutely.
an objection. But if they read the text as allowing you to do that, then your next phone call is to city planning to say, you see that section there that says 1972? Make it permitted by X date 2016, right?
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Because what's that?
Yeah, if they're gonna write a text, maybe they'll write it for you.
Yeah, and look,
Ask, try.
that is certainly something.
It doesn't make any sense anymore, as you said, to say 1972. Well, who cares what happened in 72? Right?
Absolutely.
So vesting is vesting.
I mean, because they changed other paragraph, the other lines in the paragraph.
Yes.
Why did they keep that one?
Because they weren't paying attention.
Obviously.
Yeah. Never mind.
Who knows?
Never mind. Okay.
So, like I had said, I'd like to request several weeks. We have our meeting with DOB. We'll clarify the 2411 applicability as well as the 1972 date issue. If we are able to obtain approval, I would then ask that we take the application off the calendar, and we'll go ahead and we'll build, and hopefully we finish and we get our C of O before the follow-up corrective action from city planning. And then
But
we
if
can
you
withdraw.
don't, if DOB doesn't agree, then.
Then it's different. They issue an
can't-
objection.
Yep.
But can we still issue a variance?
If they
That's not
issue-
a problem in the zoning regulation?
No, DOB thinks it's a problem.
DOB thinks this is a
Okay,
problem.
so then we
Unless they
can
want to
issue
bring
a
an
variance.
appeals case, in which case that's a whole different thing.
Yeah, an appeal. Yeah.
We look forward to your
No, that
appeals
would
case
be
and then your
no.
subsequent vesting case. Yeah,
Let's just say no.
That is unusual.
it's a good proposal, council. Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine.
Okay, so what are we doing? What's the date then?
What date do you think you can have your DOB?
I would like 3 weeks if possible, and then we can just come back with an update and let you know what's happened and where we're going from there.
What's the 20th look like?
September?
Yeah. 3 weeks is, what's this in September?
Yeah, we can put that. Yeah,
Okay, so
this-
how about
especially
you
for
come
this,
back
'cause
on
you
the
guys are-
20th of September? And in the meantime, maybe, should DOB issue an objection, in which case we continue with the application? Maybe if commissioners could go through their comments, because I don't know that we actually went through the comments, so my comments were, let's see, explain why the buildings are existing non-compliant, in other words, provide the date of construction, and show the parking calculations for all of the buildings on the zoning lot. There was a neighbor who expressed concern about the location of the dumpster, requesting its relocation closer to Northern Boulevard, so please address that. There was another one who complained about the play yard being accessed at night, so maybe there's some way of being, closing it down, something. I see there's a fence around it. It's just a low fence. It's like anybody who's good at basketball jumps right over that fence. And then, hold on, let's see. 4134, hold on one second. No, I don't have any comments. Oh, yeah. The Commissioner Shanda asked, clarify the professional development center. Is it only for staff? How frequently is it provided? What are the hours? It's not clear from the utilization chart. Provide a complete proposed floor plan. I don't know what that's referring to. It's not clear that what will replace the existing temporary nursery room and faculty room on the second floor. And the question, I think you might have answered already, is this to address existing capacity or future growth? I think you might have addressed it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had some questions. Let's see. The covered walkway on the first floor, is it considered floor area? And what is the need for that area? Is it just to provide better egress from the cafeteria?
Yes.
Oh. And, I thought you should show a full site plan, including all the current facilities on the site, including the dumpster. And what is the anticipated growth in enrollment, et cetera, things like that. And do you have any open violations?
Well, once we address the threshold issue, I think a lot of this information has been provided to the board, but it has been done somewhat piecemeal, I admit, just because information was coming in late when we had this hearing scheduled. I appreciate the board's, understanding in terms of our timing issues and consideration in that regard. But our submission, should the Department of Buildings issue this objection and we have to move forward with the variance, will recap all of these issues. I think they're all addressed, maybe not all called out, but we will do that in a submission should this need to move forward soon.
Okay, so that submission has to be by August 31st for a 20th hearing, right?
Yep, no problem.
Give us time to review new material.
Certainly.
Okay. Okay,
Thank you very much.
This concludes the public hearing for August 2nd, 2016. Turn off your mics, please.